Alright, so as you can tell by the title, today I wanted to spend some time talking about snakes, specifically my corn snake Noodle that I've had for 4 years now, and I like to brag she's only bit me once and really never acts aggressive. So the two things I want to cover in this video is one, general snake behavior, clear up some misconceptions, give people an understanding on how they act and how to interact with them, and two, specifically the things I've done to always have a calm snake like this. Let's get started, subscribe for more, and let's get into it. The first thing being the simple fact that snakes are not looking to bite. If they're in a situation that they don't like, they would rather be threatening and threaten to bite a potential predator or run away. Especially venomous snakes, they don't want to waste their venom on something that's not food. Next, I'm not a zoologist, I'm not an expert, but I've dealt with this snake, friend snakes. I've probably picked up a dozen wild snakes. So this is just things I've observed from personal experiences. A lot of the snakes I've run into, when I try to pick them up, they just want to leave. Now, something that may come as a surprise is snakes will act different a lot of the time, even if they're the same species. I have a corn snake and my brother has a corn snake, and they behave differently in the same situation. I wouldn't call it a personality, but a lot of them may be more aggressive or skittish, and it can be normalized over time, but some of them will always be that way. Now, they may not seem that intelligent, but some reptiles are actually very intelligent, such as monitor lizards and reticulated pythons, but that's a topic for another day. To kind of go back to the point I started with, there might be a misconception that if you touch a snake, it's going to immediately whip around 180 degrees and strike. Now, I don't recommend poking a rattlesnake with a stick to find out. If you touch it, it's either going to get scared or just hide in a bush. I don't want to use the cliche term, they're more scared of you than you are of it, but it's kind of true. Which kind of leads me into the second topic I wanted to talk about, which is the methods I use to keep a calm snake and just how I have it sociable. The first one being just touching it. Like, it doesn't matter right now because it's been out for half an hour and it's relaxed, but it helps realize I'm there and it's not feeding time quite yet when it's in the terrarium. A lot of times it'll either not react or it'll tense up a little bit, but that's what I like to do if it's either a little food aggressive or if it's curled up and I'm just getting it ready to be picked up. Now, to elaborate on feeding response a little bit, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically just when a snake thinks it's ready to eat and it's acting aggressive. I wouldn't call it aggressive, but it's on the hunt. Either you're going to feed it because it is actually feeding time, or you get it out of that mode and ready to be picked up so you don't get bit from it thinking you're food. Kind of the telltale sign of feeding response is basically just tracking. And it's going like under my chair. Okay. Hey, can we continue the video now, please? You're not supposed to be on the ground. Okay, tracking versus exploring. As you all know, snakes flick their tongue, and that is their sense of smell. So when they want food and they're ready to eat, they will flick their tongue very rapidly. Like, it'll... Oh. Let's see if we can get that. I can just... Oh, okay, she stopped doing it. As I was saying, they'll flick it very rapidly when they're ready to eat, smelling their food, finding it. And they will also flick their tongue when they're exploring a new area and they're just trying to figure out what's going on, but it is a little slower. So yeah, if you want to figure out whether or not it wants food, whether or not it's curious, or if it's completely calm, just look at how frequently it's flicking its tongue. There we go. Next subject is tub feeding, which is just, well, it could also be another terrarium, feeding your snake in another enclosure. I don't do this, and I'll talk about that in a second. The reason a lot of people do, and I kind of recommend it, is so that it realizes a difference between feeding time and handling time, or if you're just trying to pick up poo and you don't want it to be chasing you thinking it's getting food. Because it goes into that tub for food, and it doesn't think it's getting food while it's in its terrarium, so it's less likely to have a feeding response sitting in its terrarium. I don't feel the need to do this because I don't see her in a feeding response and worried about getting bit very often, if I see her ready to eat, I can kind of snap her out of it. So yeah, I think for a lot of people, you should probably do so, but I save time by just feeding her in there because I've realized I can keep her calm and non-aggressive. If you have issues with an aggressive snake, feeding it somewhere else besides its home would probably help. All right, as I was saying, one thing I do kind of a little bit risky, it might increase your chances, of getting bit, but it kind of helps me if she has a feeding response and she thinks it's feeding time. Sometimes I'll just kind of show her my hand. It doesn't matter right now because she's in no way aggressive and she just wants to be on the floor. But yeah, it kind of lets her smell my hand. And since she smelled me so many times, because I've had her for so long, she realizes not a threat, not food. So I actually used that about 2 weeks ago. She thought it was feeding time because I put the mouse in, but it wasn't quite defrosted, and I needed to clean in there. So I kind of literally just did that, and she smelled me, calmed down, realized it wasn't quite feeding time yet, and I fed her about 20 minutes later. The last thing I wanted to go over is what to avoid, just general things you should try not to do when you are holding a snake. The first of them is wiggling your fingers, because it can be mistaken for food. So just don't. She can't see my hand very well right now, but don't wiggle your fingers in front of the snakes, please. Another thing I like to do is not do individual fingers. It's kind of the same thing. This can kind of look like a mouse. Baby mouse is even called a pinky. So if I'm near her or holding her or anything, I try not to have a finger sticking out, and I do hand or fist. Especially with what I was just talking about, with just letting her smell my hand so she's nice and calm. Because again, this can look like a mouse. Then the last thing is just kind of getting the back of them or going underneath. You don't want to put your hand over the top of their head, and her head's not quite in the shot. But that's one of the best ways to freak them out. She really doesn't get scared anymore. But yeah, avoid going here, go under or behind if you're gonna pick them up. And it looks like that's gonna be all. So if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, like for more. Let me know what you think of, generally just things I covered today. If it's helpful, if you do things different, I don't know, just say something. And stay tuned for the next video. Oh, where is she? There we go.